Joining me today on my show is Karishma Menon. Karishma Menon is one of the founders of Project Rangit, which is an educational platform endorsed by the UN. It is a platform that specifically focuses on social, emotional, and ecological learning for children who do not come from privilege. Anyway, I will let Karishma speak more about that. I wanted to say that I met Karishma through a dear childhood friend of mine, Simran Mulchandani. We grew up together, and we are both children who have come from this kind of privilege, right? We went to one of the best schools in Bombay and are very much products of that environment even today. It's what certainly brings Simran and I together, but just as people, the way our educational background shaped us, put us into the world, the opportunities that it led to, and the connections, the contact base, the opportunities that it gives us even now through that extended network are pretty incredible. Simran and Karishma somewhere saw along the way, and their third partner, Priyanka, who I have not spoken to, saw somewhere along the way that there was a need in the world for young kids who didn't come from backgrounds like us. So I was chatting with Simran, and he said, you should really speak with one of my co founders, Karishma. Her background is incredible, and she's a person who grew up hating school. And that really befuddled me and intrigued me because I thought, how can you sort of grow up hating school and then go into education, right? You think always it's the counter, like the best school teachers are those who love learning and so therefore love to teach. So today I talked to Karishma Menon. She is a co-founder of Project Rangit and specifically responsible for curriculum development and product.
My name is Karishma Menon. I am one of the founders of Project Rangit. Just to give you just in two lines what Project Rangit is, we think of ourselves as innovators and social entrepreneurs who support educators to impact the overall development of a child, including their relationship with the environment.
Okay, I have a lot of questions about Project Rangit. I'm going to get to that in a bit. I'm really intrigued by the fact that you are an educator in the truest sense of the word. Yet, when you sent me your backgrounder, you said that you grew up hating school.
Yeah.
How does this work? How does somebody who hates school become an educator?
I know, it's ironic. And yeah, like I said, I hated school. I think school is great if you excel academically. But if you were someone like me and you struggled with math and science, school can be such a brutal place. And your formative years where you don't even know who you are, you end up sort of putting labels on yourself like I did of being dumb and stupid just because I couldn't figure out math. I couldn't do chemistry. I couldn't do any of just the basic academic stuff that my classmates would. So I absolutely hated school. I would go through the motions of putting on my uniform, getting on the school bus, constantly filled with dread. What would I be called upon to solve that I know that I would not be able to? What would my marks be? And so it's fair to say that I really hated school. It sort of killed my self-esteem. Spent many years telling myself I'm not 13 anymore. I've grown up. A lot has changed. But I think those things that you sort of grow up thinking about yourself get so ingrained. It takes a long time of other people telling you and you telling yourself that you're not that person anymore. So I think the way I look at Project Rangit when I'm creating the curriculum, I feel like I'm talking to my 10-year-old self and almost trying to make up what I went through when I was that young and sort of trying to tell them that it's okay. And yeah, school's a big deal when you're in school, but there's so much out there that really has nothing to do with school. And so the curriculum that we work on is hopefully preparing children for life outside school, outside those four walls, and hopefully um, building resilience, growth mindset, just empathy towards themselves, towards those around them. And I think ultimately those are things you're not necessarily taught in school.
So you've already segued into it. I guess I should ask you, what is Project Rangit?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, we say that we support educators connecting brains with hearts. So Project Rangit is UN endorsed. We like to think that it's an easy to implement mobile platform that features a social, emotional, and ecological curriculum with structured lesson plans that are developed around the UN SDGs. We use playful learning methods like music, art, storytelling, games, and with the understanding of multiple intelligences, we teach in the way that different brains think and learn. So the platform includes tools that measure impact at scale and is designed to work in any geographic or socioeconomic context, including humanitarian crisis zones without overburdening educators.
So when you say it is a UN endorsed platform, I'm still trying to get my head around, is it a tool that is implemented in schools? Is it a school itself? What exactly?
No, it is not. It is not a school. Project Rangit is essentially, it's a platform, and we have a curriculum, and we deliver that curriculum via mobile app. So to teach, the curriculum is structured for teachers who we then hope will impart this to children, in whether it's in a parent teaching a child at home, whether it's an older kid teaching a younger kid, whether it's a teacher teaching in a classroom, or even communities. The beauty in the way that it's been sort of developed is that anyone can pick up the curriculum and teach. The instructions are in the app, and we hope that communities are brought together by this. Even the elderly, we'd love to have them sort of included in this and teach young kids about things that we think really matter in the world.
So you mentioned three aspects of this curriculum. You mentioned social, emotional, and ecological, right? We hear a lot about social, emotional in the context of education. And ecological, in some ways, we think of that as sort of a no-brainer these days, certainly compared to sort of the world that I grew up in, where it was a separate subject. Let's say, right. The environment is important to us all, impacts us all. So why have you picked these three aspects and put them together? Is this what's missing?
There are people and organizations that are teaching social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is not new. It's something that's been around for ages, but I don't think it's ever been looked at seriously as something that our children need to be equipped with in order to just go out into the world and lead their lives. In schools, we're so fixated on grades and core curriculum that we sort of forget who the child is, who's the person. We kind of forget that. And so our aim is, even though it's been around for years, we have structured our curriculum in such a way that we have made it easy for educators who are already so overburdened, and especially in this pandemic, we've seen what they've been through. And so we hope that the way we deliver the curriculum, it's super easy for anyone to teach. And the reason we sort of chose social, emotional, and ecological is, of course, social emotional, but without a healthy planet, there is no life on Earth. So we think it's super important to have all the building blocks. And the way we structure our curriculum is we sort of have three umbrellas. self, society, and sustainability. In our self umbrella, we believe that it starts with oneself. We need to learn to have empathy towards ourselves, look after our own minds and bodies in order to look after those around us. And only once we are physically and mentally healthy can we sort of look out for those around us, whether it's family or friends or just people in your community. And once you've looked after yourself and those around you, hopefully you'll be more empathetic to the environment around.
So Karishma, who or what kind of schools have incorporated your platform? Are they specifically in India? You mentioned humanitarian environments. Tell me more.
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, of course, like I said, Project Rangit can be taught anywhere by anyone. But at the moment, we think our product is most suited to developing or underdeveloped countries, because these are topics that kids there are almost certainly not exposed to. And so currently we're in some schools in India, which we're currently doing a pilot in Jharkhand, which is one of the poorest states in India, with a couple of kids where we've sort of handed the app and we've trained a couple of teachers and they are running Project Rangit in their schools, and sort of we're all eagerly awaiting the results of that. We've done a pilot in Bangladesh, with BRAC, which is a huge social enterprise over there, as well as the government of Bangladesh. And the hope is to expand all over India, all over Asia, of course, and pretty much anywhere in the world.
Give me an example of what the schools in Bangladesh or Jharkhand are doing. Like, if I walk into these schools, how do I see Project Rangit in action?
You'll probably see a bunch of kids giggling, hands covered in paint, teachers looking super excited to deliver the curriculum. And I think what we intentionally did is we wanted these classes to be fun, because I think, we think that you learn when you're having fun. And so the kids essentially getting their hands dirty with Play-Doh and paint, and there are stories and there's music and they're dancing and they're singing. And through these different methods, they're learning about what we hope matters in life. So you won't see a bunch of kids just sitting and writing in their notebooks. Chances are they're leaping around the classroom along with the teacher. So that's probably how you tell it's a Project Rangit class.
So really getting down to, I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun. I want to be in that class, right? Firstly, let me say that. When I look at what I think of as sort of school subjects, you mentioned the math and the science and the history, geography, whatever it is, where am I getting that in the context of the Project Rangit format?
So we don't deal with core curriculum at all.
Okay.
So if you're doing a Project Rangit class, you may be using math and science, but that's not the core of the subject at all. For example, in our sustainability umbrella, where we're talking about global warming and photosynthesis and all sorts of things. So you are pulling in elements from biology and chemistry, but that is not core to what we're teaching. What we're trying to teach through the photosynthesis and the trees and everything is value of life on Earth, and how, humans are essentially destroying, we'll all be fine, we'll be dead and gone, but we're leaving almost nothing for future generations. And so we don't deal with core curriculum, but we pull in elements from there as well.
I see. So you pull in elements, so that sticks, because then it's contextualized, right?
And if a teacher, for example, a biology teacher is teaching something, and the teacher feels, I wish I had a way to explain this better, we have games. For example, if a teacher is doing a class on pollution, we have a really cool game where a teacher sort of pulls up a little board and gets the kids to find the hidden culprits that are causing pollution. So if she's teaching or he's teaching a science class, these games can be pulled in as fun ways to sort of teach the core curriculum.
So would it be fair to say that uh, your curriculum that you have developed incorporates a game-based approach to learning.
Yeah, it's a playful learning approach where we use music, art, storytelling, because all these create neural pathways, and hopefully it results in learning that will stick because they've not just written stuff down or looked at it on a board. They've actually done it. They've created something, and I think when you're creative and you're making things with your hands or you're thinking about it, hopefully those ideas stick in your head.
So Karishma, you created this curriculum, is that right?
Along with my partner, well, we're three founders. Priyanka, who's actually the teacher amongst the three of us, she and I together, we created the curriculum.
So tell me more specifically about your role. This is now going back to my first question of how does somebody who grows up hating school become an educator? What drew you, now that I understand what Project Rangit is about, I have to ask, what drew you to being an educator? You had other things that you were doing in your career along the way. Is that right?
Yeah. I think Project Rangit was, the way I sort of describe it, was a happy accident. I don't think I ever set out to do anything in education. I sort of felt rudderless. Large portion of my life, didn't really know what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, couldn't figure out my direction. I think when I graduated from college, everyone was doing media. And I thought, oh, cool, I'll do that as well. And so I sort of followed that path, and it was great. But I've always questioned my purpose. I never understood what the point of me being on this planet was. And I always thought there had to be more. I can't, you go to work and you earn a living and all that's great, but how do I create impact? And for the longest time, I couldn't figure it out. And I actually went years not being able to figure it out, but it was sort of always at the back of my mind. And so when the founders, three of us, sort of discussed the possibility of starting something like Project Rangit, I was really excited because I said, well, maybe, as ironic as it is, considering I hated school, this may be my way to contribute and create some sort of impact, as small as it might be, where if I can help a kid in school feel like, oh, Project Rangit helps people see what I'm good at, I'd say that my purpose is kind of met. So that's sort of my part.
So Karishma, not knowing the complete and detailed background, I do know, as you said, you were a filmmaker, you went into media. And then you found yourself at Blue Frog and you met Simran through that. Right? And so I am a strong believer in that music really does bring us together. All
Absolutely.
of us. So tell me a little bit about that. Was that sort of where this idea blossomed, emerged? I mean, Blue Frog also made a major impact. I like a different kind of impact. I'm very sad it doesn't exist anymore. But tell me how this idea sort of, the seeds of it, how it came about.
So Simran, who I met at Blue Frog, he was invited by one of his ex-colleagues from JP Morgan to teach at a municipal school in one of the suburbs of Bombay. And he was invited to teach English. And he went and the way he describes it is when he walked into that classroom and he sort of had a look at the kids around, he just sort of felt really overwhelmed because the kids ranged from, 8-year-olds to 14-year-olds in the same class, sort of huddled together in this mashup of kids. And he just felt that these kids, to some extent, are defeated at birth. And how do you break the cycle where it was clear that a lot of the older kids were the girls who very often are pulled out of school because they have to work and help either in their fields or help their mother, cook at home because she's out working and someone has to look after the younger siblings, or just the abuse that they face in their homes. And so he came back feeling sort of, he just felt that, he has kids who come from privilege and have the ability to do what they want, take risks, fall, pick themselves up again. But you can only do that when you come from privilege. When you don't have that luxury. And so he sort of had this this overwhelming feeling of doing something with kids to empower them, to get them to feel like just for a second they were responsible for their own lives. And so he sort of spoke to Priyanka and me and he said, we really have to do something. And so Project Rangit had a few avatars. It sort of began with 3-hour workshops, which we found out is not practical considering a school day. And so it went through many stages, and it sort of now is a curriculum that we hope is taught weekly. So that's sort of the journey.
And a few different sort of questions come to mind, but and thoughts, but this idea of working with the child who does not come from privilege, right? This is something that really rings true in so many parts of the world. And I think we are, those of us who do come from privilege, we are increasingly sensitive to this, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Is that what led to you all getting an endorsement by the UN? How did that happen?
So we were sort of put in touch with, we do a lot of work with Bangladesh, and so we work with BRAC, we work with the government of Bangladesh, and sort of through all that, we met with some of the guys who work for the UN from Bangladesh, and they really loved what we were doing, and they understood the importance of empathy, and how they felt that their kids are losing the ability to be empathetic to one another. And they felt that this was something that actually needed to be part of their core curriculum. And so they invited us for a couple of conferences. We did a lot of pilots where we got quantitative and qualitative feedback. And they realized that Project Rangit is something that should be taught in schools. And so we've been endorsed by them. We've been written up in a UN book by them. So that's where we got endorsed by them.
Karishma, why is empathy so important?
Wow. That's an interesting question.
Or at least in this context, why did the UN pick up on this fact that they're lacking empathy, and then
I think it's I think the answer to that is so glaringly obvious in the world today when you think of how divided we are as people. There's this beautiful activity we do in our module that talks about diversity and discrimination, where we get the kids to compare plain pieces of Play-Doh with those sitting around, and they sort of list out all the differences and the similarities. And the similarities is that they're all just plain pieces of Play-Doh. And then we ask them to color them with paint and ask them, now what's different? And typically the reactions are, oh, the color is different now. So, and then the teacher equates these colored pieces of Play-Doh to us human beings and sort of talks to the children about how, even though all of us look different from the outside, we follow different religions, we eat different foods, we speak different languages, we're ultimately that plain piece of Play-Doh on the inside. And I feel like we've forgotten that we're actually all just human beings. We are so divided, whether it's, there's so many inequalities, racial, religious. This pandemic has made it so clear, the gap between the haves and the have-nots, where underprivileged kids who don't have access to devices, they have lost a full year of education, and chances are they will not go back to school, because by now they're already working in their fields or in jobs to earn money, and they're never going to go back to school. And I think teaching kids about empathy, it should be something that organizations and governments, focus on immediately, before they think about all the curriculum that's been lost in math and science. And yeah, that's fine, but I think this is so important at this point.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of math and science, I have to sort of share with you a funny but true detail. So some of the things that you were saying about the math and science being a challenge for you resonated when I remember when we were in the ninth standard. Yes. Computer science was introduced into our school curriculum. And I was, let's just say I was made to switch from French to computer science, and I had serious doubts about this. Should I not? Anyway, I did. There was a few of us, who were asked to do that, and it was a very new subject, so the teachers themselves didn't know anything about it and really couldn't teach this subject to us.
Yeah.
So guess who my teacher was? Guess who taught me the ICSE curriculum for computer science? Simran.
I was going to say, but I'm like, is that possible?
All through my life, I have been saying, is that possible? Was that possible?
Yeah.
Yes, it was possible. It is possible. It happened. Yeah. I passed the ICSE with flying colors thanks to my buddy Simran. So I really hope he is doing some teaching, in the schools.
Simran is one of those annoying people. I think I would have hated him at school because he's so brilliant.
Yes.
And he just gets stuff. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't even know how you understood that, but he does. And I think you need someone like that, because he's all about the business and how to make things work, which Priyanka and I totally are not. So
annoyingly brilliant and brilliantly
annoyingly brilliant. Yes, that's true.
And we love him for it. So back to you, Karishma. So it's very, very inspirational, what you're doing, the work that you're doing. And I would love to understand where you see this going in the next 5 years, 10 years, and then beyond that, vis-a-vis you.
Me. Like I said, every time I'm sort of putting pen to paper, when I'm sort of writing along with Priyanka, when I'm thinking of games, when I'm thinking of activities, I'm thinking of that 10-year-old girl in school who sat there kind of like a wallflower. I was all the way at the back, luckily, because I was tall. So I was all the way at the back of the class. And I was invisible because I just hated everything about it. But I sort of stood out because I did so badly. So it was sort of ironic that I was invisible and stood out at the same time. So my hope is that when kids have to go to school, I don't see any way out of that anytime soon. But my hope is that when they do Project Rangit, it showcases multiple intelligences where kids who might be good at creative stuff like art, or theater, or singing, or sport, for a change, their strengths are showcased, and they feel like the intelligence they have, which may not be academic, is still of value and important. And my hope is that Project Rangit is sort of everywhere, where all kids are going through it. Teachers are having fun teaching it, hopefully enhancing their pedagogical skills as they go along. I would say that for me, if I can create impact, that would be so worth it for everything that we're doing right now.
Wonderful. Well, wishing you much success with Project Rangit, and all the impact that you can possibly make, which I'm sure you will. You already are.
Thank you very much.
That's what we have on the show today. I look forward to seeing you again. with more interesting guests, more wonderful women doing wonderful things.